going on, everybody, and welcome to the Saturday afternoon edition of the Stochastic Strategy Show. I am your host, Josh Harris. I was hoping my internet would be better, and it was right up until we clicked live. Maybe it will buffer itself out, and we will be okay. But there it goes. It is improving, but we are back for a nice little 11-game slate here tonight. The nice thing about that, 10 of the 11 games are done before puck drop is 8 p.m. Eastern or 8:30 Eastern or sooner. Let me gather my thoughts here. My voice is still a little bit shot, but we will make it work. Also, I didn't play last night. It was just a 2-game slate. The slate before that was Thursday. I actually had one of my best nights of the season thanks to our Columbus Blue Jackets. I didn't have them in my original lineup. I had Ottawa 1 with Washington 2, and the second I saw Jonas Johansson confirmed, I switched immediately to Columbus 1. Apparently should have switched to Columbus 1 and Werenski, but we take the cash, we move on. What's going on, Cliffy?
Yeah, not a whole lot. I main cashed on Thursday with Columbus. I didn't play Werenski either. I had Florida, the Barkov or the Kachuk line as my secondary stack. Luckily enough, Kachuk hit the shot bonus. Sam Bennett hit the shot bonus, and I had Jake Wallman on the blue line. He also hit the shot bonus. So even though none of them got any actual points, they weren't that bad for DFS. So that got me over the hump. But yeah, our Columbus boys came through in a big way on Thursday. Columbus back on the docket here tonight. Very interesting slate. There are a lot of teams with some pretty key line changes. And honestly, most of the line changes I kind of like, so excited to break them all down.
Yeah. I'm going to be brief today. I mean, I don't know how long my voice has, so I'm going to try to get through this as quickly as possible without making the content less good. I don't even know what I'm trying to say, but I think you know what I'm trying to say. Let's get into it. Just wanted to say thank you guys again for all your support with the affiliate signups, just being here, liking the shows, even filling my DMs with hate mail. Any publicity is good publicity, they say. It's mostly just Bruins guys, and you guys suck, so F off. No, I'm just kidding. But no, we truly do appreciate it. And if you do want to go premium, we'll never make you go premium. But if you are interested, click the link in the chat. You can use promo code Stochastic15, and that will get you 15% off your first week or month of any membership. Yeah. Let's get into it. The first game of the night, we have the Vegas Golden Knights with a 3.3 total heading into Montreal. The Canadiens have a 2.7 total. Vegas going Eichel, Barbashev, Holtz, Hurdle, Roy, Kolesar, Carlson, Dorofeyev, Howden, freshly minted Brett Howden, 5-year, $2.5 million a year extension. Pretty wild extension for a fourth liner, for being serious, but Rangers legend Brett Howden getting paid. Montreal running back Suzuki, Slavkovsky, Doc, Caulfield, Evans, Newhook. The rest of that lineup doesn't really matter. It's kind of an interesting little first game here. That top line for Montreal has been very good defensively, and the sample is getting larger, and the defensive numbers haven't really moved. They have been excellent. It's up to a 45-minute sample. Still very good. That Eichel line with Holtz and Barbashev, very small sample, but very pond hockey-ish, we will say. Cliffy noted, I think it was on Thursday, that most of the damage that Eichel has been doing is on the power play, and this is a very good power play matchup here. I don't know how much Vegas I'll be getting to, though. You know what I mean? Like 3.3 total is nice. It's one of the larger road totals. In fact, most of the really high totals on the slate are road totals. And we'll talk about those when we get there. I think if anything, I do some sort of power play stack. You do like Eichel, Hurdle, Roy, something like that. Roy, Hurdle, Dorofeyev. Although if I'm going to power play stack, I do want Eichel in, and I don't really want to go across 3 lines. So it'd probably be Eichel, Hurdle, Roy, and just go about my day. I don't mind stacking Montreal too. Vegas too, because once you get past Montreal 1, the defensive numbers just fall off a cliff. So I think I'm fine with Hurdle, Roy, and Colasar as a filler. They're only 12,100 on DK, 2.1% projected ownership. So I would do some sort of Vegas power play stack or just straight up stack Vegas 2, depending on your build. I think Vegas 3 is also fine. I just prefer getting more power play guys in. So Dorofeyev went off, obviously acceptable. On the Montreal side, like if Vegas took more penalties, I'd be like, yeah, okay, this is a pretty good spot for 13,000 Montreal 1. But again, it's kind of twofold. One, Vegas doesn't take a lot of penalties. And even if they did, it would be weird stacking a fully correlated line without Cole Caulfield in the stack. So like if you get to some Montreal 1 in your crunches, you know what I mean, as a filler line, how often do you get a top line fully correlated at 13,000? You know what I mean? So like if they get into your crunches, that's fine, but I'm not really going to be prioritizing Montreal here. It'd be Vegas power play stack or Vegas 2.
Yeah, I do want to go over because you mentioned the defensive numbers for the top line for Montreal. They have been good together since they have been assembled. You mentioned it's just a 45-minute sample, but what is it, like one expected goal against in those 45 minutes? Like it's been really good. Mm-hmm. But it's not just Montreal, it's the entire team. Like I think I mentioned the last time we had Montreal on the show, which was last Saturday. The defensive numbers for the entire team have just been a lot better since one, Caden Gooley got healthy, and two, they sent Logan Mailloux down to the AHL because Mailloux was just getting the hell beat out of him pretty much every single shift. By expected goals against over those last 9 games since they sent Mailloux down, Montreal's 15th by expected goals against per 60 at 5-on-5 in the league. Teams that are worse in that stretch include Carolina, Tampa Bay, the Rangers, and the Islanders. The goals against has been a little bit worse than that mark, but not bad. That top line has been legitimately good defensively. The entire team has been a lot better. It kind of takes me out of Vegas 1. One, because we don't know what Vegas's lines are. I haven't seen anything from a morning skate for line combinations. And in their last game, they moved Nicholas Roy to the top line for the third period, and they won that game. So does he stay there? Do they put Alex Holtz back? Don't really know. Either way, I don't have a lot of interest in Vegas 1. I think it's kind of a bad matchup going into that Suzuki line. Vegas 2 would be where my interest goes. Roy, and assuming Roy's on the second line with Thomas Hurdle, Roy and Hurdle have been very good together. 3.4 expected goals for, 2.2 against. In their time together, about 55 minutes. It's not a ton, but it's getting up there. They're both on the top power play unit as well. They're going to get those good second and third line matchups from Montreal. They're not coming in with a ton of ownership, 2.1% ownership, 1% top 2 stack. Like, give or whether you want to leave Keegan Colasar on there or not, or whether he's even going to be on that line of warmups, we'll see. But I think at least a 2-man of Hurdle and Roy makes a lot of sense because you do that, get that power play time in a good power play matchup, and you avoid what has been a pretty good defensive line, top line for Montreal. So Vegas 2 for me. On the Montreal side, I do have interest in Montreal 1. Like the point about Vegas not taking penalties is right. Like over the last month, they've taken the fewest penalties of any team in the league, but that line's only 13K. Right? Like this isn't a Montreal 1 from last season that was like 18,800 or something like that. At 13K, if there's a shot bonus from one of the guys, you might only need one perfectly correlated goal to get decent value out of them. And if you get 2, if you can get like 2 goals and 2 assists or something like that, then you're laughing. And the Vegas top line, since Mark Stone got hurt, has been getting throttled defensively. 4.1 expected goals against per 60, 3.3 actual goals against per 60. Alex Pietrangelo was not playing tonight. I think this is a really good matchup for Montreal 1. So like they're basically priced as a filler, and they are a perfectly correlated top line that's going to play like 18 to 20 minutes. I don't mind Montreal 1 here. So Montreal 1 is certainly a filler that I have interest in tonight. It'd be Vegas 1 for me on the other side, or Vegas 2 for me on the other side. Sorry.
Yeah, I mean, I get why you would want to play Montreal 1 for sure at that price. There's also a line in this next game that is the same price that I also have some interest in. Vancouver Canucks with a 2.8 total. Heading into Ottawa, the Senators have a 3.2. If you're following along with Top Stacks, our boss, Jake Hari, just gave us an update. Thanks, Jake. You're such a wonderful person. Heart. Vancouver going Pettersson, DeBrusk, Sherwood, Garland, Suter, Joshua, Bluger, Heinen, Hoglander. New lines for the Senators after losing with a loaded top line. They're going Pinto, Tkachuk, Grieg, Stützle, Batherson, Giroux, Norris, Perron, Amadio. This is an interesting matchup. I'm not 100% sure who they're going to send out against the Pettersson line. I'm not convinced it's going to be Pinto, Grieg, and Tkachuk. It might be.
I don't think it matters.
I kind of have more interest. Yeah, it doesn't matter. I mean, that Pettersson line in a very short sample has been very good. But again, like most Pettersson lines, just, he's kind of like the Panarin kind of breaks expected goals models a little bit. Grieg and Tkachuk have a pretty good sample together this season. Now, most of that is with Norris, a little bit with Stützle. I happen to be a Pinto guy. That line's only 14.9, 3.9% top two stack, 5% projected ownership. I like them, but I think I prefer Stützle, Batherson, Giroux at 16.3 with a higher top two stack and less ownership, 3.2% projected. Even if they go out against Pettersson, like it's the Canucks, they're so banged up right now. Giroux probably will play the most at 5-on-5 of any of their forwards. You get Stützle and Batherson on the top power play. Not that this is a great power play matchup, but I prefer the makeup of that line a little bit more than Pinto, Tkachuk, Grieg. That third line in Norris, Perron, and Amadio is interesting from the fact that they're under 10K. They fit with anybody. And they'll probably play their 14, 15 minutes. So I don't mind Ottawa. Giroux would be my go-to on Ottawa. On the Vancouver side, Pettersson, DeBrusk, Sherwood at third, then Montreal 1. And that would be a deterrent when I'm deciding between them. Yes, Ottawa has been a mess in net, but they have gotten better defensively of late. I don't know how these lines are going to affect that, but sitting Travis Hamonic is at least a huge bump for them. I don't mind the Pettersson, DeBrusk, Sherwood line. I probably would just go play Montreal 1 at that point. I would probably go to Suter, Garland, Joshua at 10,500, 3.8% top two, or 3.8% projected ownership, 1.2% top two. For a line that cheap, that's really not that much negative leverage. I would probably use them as a filler. Garland has probably been their best player besides JT Miller. JT Miller's out. I don't mind Suter. He's a good play driver, just can't finish, but Garland's a shooter, so I don't mind the makeup of that line, 10,500. They're a nice filler. So Ottawa 2 is my favorite line in this game, and there's a couple fillers in the depth of both teams that I like.
Yeah, I do. I think Hamonic is playing tonight. Jacob Bernard Talker, I pointed this out on Twitter, like he completely screwed the pooch on the Jack Eichel goal on Thursday night. I think that probably got him benched. So Hamonic is back in, but like, here's the thing is like, one of the reasons why I don't mind stacking against Ottawa, even though they've actually been a pretty good defensive team, is that their penalty kill has not been. The issue with Vancouver is they don't have JT Miller and they don't have Brock Besser, and you're replacing them, with like Pius Suter. Like, I like Suter. He shouldn't be on the power play. Jake DeBrusk, he's fine. I don't think that power play is going to be very good. So, like, I don't really know how Vancouver – any team can score against anybody in any situation at any moment. Like, that's just kind of the nature of hockey. But I suspect Vancouver's not going to be able to get there on the power play here tonight. They're probably going to have to do it at 5-on-5. And at 5-on-5, like, I suppose I would probably go to the Pettersson, DeBrusk, Sherwood line just because I think they're going to play the most minutes. Going to be honest, I just prefer the Ottawa side here. I agree with you on Ottawa too. Stützle, Batherson, and Giroux, 3.2% ownership, 5% top two stack. As you mentioned, a little bit more expensive, but they've been really good. 3.1 expected goals per 60, 5 actual goals per 60. You know, Giroux and Stützle over the last couple of weeks are basically playing like 21 minutes a night. Batherson will get his 17 to 19, 18 minutes, whatever. So there's a chance, like, despite them being listed as Ottawa 2, that they're actually the top line. You only get 2 out of the 3 on the power play, but I think that's fine. It's not necessarily a great power play spot, but, JT Miller is a fixture of the Vancouver penalty kill. I got to think that hurts them somewhat. For me in this game, it would be Ottawa 2, Stützle, Batherson, Giroux. That's really all I have interest in. I think there are some nice one-offs on the Vancouver side. Connor Garland's 4,500. It's a little bit expensive, but that's fine. Kiefer Sherwood's 3K. He's been getting a lot of ice time. That's fine. Jake DeBrusk, 3,800. That's fine. I'd be more apt to take some cheap one-offs from Vancouver than I would be to stack anything. I think this is about Ottawa 2. But just in general, it is not a game that I'm necessarily prioritizing on either side for my lineup tonight.
Yeah, agreed. Boston Bruins with a 2.9 total heading into Detroit. The Wings have a 2.6 total, 5.5 total here. It speaks volumes. Considering how bad these teams are defensively and how many penalties Boston takes in this game, is still a 5.5 is a bit of a scene. I just don't like these Detroit lines. I think I would go to the top line, Larkin, Raymond, Tarasenko, just because, you get 2 of the guys on the power play. They're only $200 more. They have double the top 2 stack, a little bit more ownership, but still positive leverage at 14.4. Like, if there was a fully correlated Detroit line here, I would have a lot more interest, but Tarasenko really doesn't do too much for me up there. Marco Kasper, DFS-wise, doesn't really do too much on the second line for me. So Larkin, Raymond, Tarasenko, but again, I don't have a ton of interest there. Honestly, the Boston side's a little bit more interesting to me. Detroit's terrible. Once you get past that, the Cedar pair, there's nothing there for Detroit. And I can't believe this is coming out of my mouth, but that Lindholm, Marchand, Brazeau line has actually been pretty good. They've been creating a fair bit. I think if you want to do something with Boston here, you go like Lindholm, Marchand. You can leave off Brazeau, add in Pasternak, make it a semi-expensive power play stack. Like, that Boston second line is going to get decent matchups 5-on-5. They're going to avoid the Cedar pair for the most point. Detroit's penalty kill sucks. So I'm fine with Boston 2 adding in Pasternak and making it a power play stack. But again, if I'm going to be honest, there just isn't much that I want to prioritize in this game for my single entry.
Yeah. One thing is, like, Boston has been improving defensively as the season's gone on, at least at 5-on-5. So it's not that Detroit's been a bad 5-on-5 team this year offensively. So Not that it would ever be a good matchup, but I don't think it's necessarily a good 5-on-5 matchup for Detroit. What it is a good power play matchup for Detroit, where the Red Wings have found their success this year. They're kind of like Ottawa in that way, is with the power play. Boston still at 3.4 times shorthanded per game over the last 4 weeks, or 3.4 times shorthanded per game over the last 4 weeks. It's tied for 4th most in the league per game, still giving up lots of power play goals. Detroit's power play has generally been very good. If they do get there tonight, I think it's going to be with that power play. And because of that, I think I have a little bit of interest in that Detroit top line, because they are probably going to play quite a bit with Cedar and Edmondson. They aren't that expensive at $14,400. I'm not worried. Of all the matchups, I think against Boston, the one that you probably want to get is them going out against Zacha and Pasternak, which is going to happen. So it's not a great 5-on-5 matchup. It could be worse. It's a good power play matchup. 14,400. I think they're in play. They're not necessarily a target for me, and it's all I really have interest in from the Detroit side. On the Boston side, it's kind of the same deal. Like you said, Cedar and Edmondson have been really good this season. I do think that's going to make it tough on Zacha and Pasternak. Zacha and Pasternak, 2.8 expected goals per 60 without Lindholm or Marchand on their line. So they've been generating. They've been shooting pretty hot, 16.2%, which is high. Like you'd expect maybe 11% at the most. So you got to think this is a line that's probably going to be closer to like 3 goals per 60, which is good, but not great. But it's the power play where they can really do the damage, because Detroit's penalty kill is very bad. Boston's power play has not been that good either. Like, if anything, I think I kind of agree with you. I would probably turn it into some sort of power play stack for Boston, like a Pasternak, Marchand 2-man, Pasternak, Zacha, Marchand, like something like that. Just in general, I just really do not have a lot of interest in this game. These are 2 very, very bad 5-on-5 offensive teams. And not just they're getting unlucky by shooting percentages. Both teams are having trouble creating anything, like any sort of dangerous chances for any of their lines, basically. And if this was like a 5 or a 6 game slate, I would give it a closer look. Single entry on 11-game slate, I feel like a 5.5 total, where both teams have been pretty bad at 5-on-5, and you're really relying on the power play probably to double down here tonight, is just asking a lot. Like I said, Detroit won, maybe some sort of Boston power play stack, but it's not something that I'm necessarily prioritizing here tonight.
Yeah, I agree. Dallas Stars with a 3.1 total heading into Tampa Bay. The Lightning have a 3 total. Tampa going Kucherov, Gensel, Point, Hagel, Cirelli, Atkinson. Dallas running back Robertson, Hintz, Johnston, Duchesne, Sagan, Marchman, Stankov, and Ben Bork. Now, like, Tampa top line is 24,300, and we're kind of in that point where, like, why? What do they do to deserve this? It was kind of like the beginning of the season. Why are they this expensive? This is a brutal matchup to be 24,300. So honestly, this is that top line would be for 20 max to 150 max. Kucherov one-off, obviously fine, but this is a pretty tough matchup. That second line is a bit interesting. I don't know how long Atkinson's going to last there. That's the issue, but Cirelli, Hagel going out against Hintz, Johnson, Robertson. I don't have a ton of interest in single entry, but again, that's a line in MME. Maybe I'll get to a little bit. The Dallas side, it's kind of the same boat. Vasilevsky's back in net, I would imagine. Excuse me. If it was Jonas Johansson, I'd obviously have a lot more interest in Dallas. As it is, I don't have a ton of interest. Robertson, Johnson, Hintz at 17.9. They're all right. like Duchesne, Sagan, Marchment would be my favorite Dallas line, but they're 18,200 on the road. They're getting priced into a territory where I want them to play more minutes. So I think if anything on the Dallas side, I go to that third line, Bork, Stankoven, Ben. Maybe do like a Bork, Stankoven, or Ben, Stankoven, something like that. You get 2 to 3 guys on the top power play unit. They avoid, they'll have the bottom 6 matchups of Tampa. So that's probably where I go in this game. But again, this is a MME only for me.
Yeah. That Tampa top line, 24,300, I think is just overpriced. Obviously Kucherov has had his great start. He should be one of the most expensive players on the slate. Jake Gensel at 7,400, like 2.5 shots per game. So on pace for like 30 goals. Like it's good, but it's not 7,400 good, I don't think. Like other guys in that, like Kyle Connor's less than $1,000 more expensive. Martin Necas is cheaper. Like there's just, I don't think he should probably be like 6K maybe. And Braden Point, obviously he's off to a great start. He has 11 goals in 14 games. He's also shooting 41%. Now he's generally like, he can be a 20% shooter. He has been for a couple years in a row, but a 20% shooter is not a 41% shooter. Like that is preposterous. He has 11 goals in 14 games. It probably should be like 5 or 6 goals in 14 games. Then all of a sudden, the guy that whose 82 game pace is for like 65 goals or whatever is like a 35 goal scorer. So like, it's just a pass for me. Like I'm passing on 24,003. I think Point's overpriced for what he's not overpriced for what he's done, considering he's shooting 41%. If he could shoot 41% for a full season, I'd agree with him being 7,200, but he's not going to shoot 41% for a full season. Jake Gensel's not shooting the puck. Nikita Kucherov is the only guy that's anywhere near appropriately priced. Like a Kucherov one-off, fine. I have no issue with that. I never will. But nothing for me from Tampa. On the Dallas side, like Dallas too would be the line that I have interest in, but I agree with you. The price is getting to be a problem. They're 18,200, 1.9% top 2 stack. There are a couple reasons why I would like Dallas tonight. One, they're going to avoid that Hagel-Sorelli matchup, which is important. And two, I was looking at Tampa Bay's penalty kill. They allow a lot of shots specifically from where Tyler Seguin shoots from on the power play. It seems like it would be a good power play matchup for Seguin and that Dallas power play unit that has been the better unit all season long. But this is a slate with 22 teams on it, and this is the 6th most expensive line on the board, and they're going to play 16 minutes, maybe 15 minutes, could be. Like, it's just far too expensive. So I agree with you. I think Dallas 3, the Stankoven, Ben Bork line is the only thing that I really have interest in this game. It's because they are cheap, 12,600 with Bork there. I think they're fine as a filler, 2-man Bork and Stankoven or something like that. But other than that, this is not a game where I'm looking for my stacks. Robertson, I think I'd rather play Robertson, Hintz, and Johnston at this point because they are cheaper than the Marchment line and will get more minutes. But I just think there's a lot of overpriced players in this game that I just don't really have interest in.
Agreed. Utah, the Soakers with a 3.3 total heading into Pittsburgh. The Penguins have a 3.2. Mercifully, the Utah lines are playable again. Hi-yo. Pittsburgh going Crosby, Rust, Raquel, Malkin, Beauvillier, Bunting. Utah going Schmaltz, Hayton, Keller, Bukestad, Krause, Michelli, Cooley, Genther, McBain. Like Pittsburgh, just not good defensively here. I do like Utah 1 here. Hayton's not on the top power play unit, but this isn't the most ideal power play spot. and Utah's power play has been pretty bad of late. But I don't mind full stacking Hayton, Schmaltz, Keller, 14,200, 3.6% top two stack, 5.5% projected ownership. I think that is certainly fine for their price. Whether they go out against Crosby, whether they go out against that Malkin line, I don't think either will be any good defensively. So I'm in on Utah 1. Not so much on Cooley, Genther, McBain. From a 5-on-5 standpoint, I don't have much interest in McBain, specifically because they're 11-2 and they're 7.2% projected ownership. At that point, I'm just going right to Krause, Bukestad, Michelli at 9,200, 2.6% projected ownership. That's a line that has been very good when together. They're super cheap. Like, I agree with Cliffy. There isn't really a need to play Tampa 1. They're just overpriced. But if you do play them, this is a line I definitely play them with. I'm thinking about, if I'm thinking about power play stacking, I'm taking two guys from this line as well, like a Bukestad, Michelli, something like that. They're fully correlated on the second unit. Not that, again, not the best spot, but that second unit does get some time. So Hayton, Schmaltz, Keller, I'm in on. If you need a filler, Bewley. On the Pittsburgh side, I do like Pittsburgh 1 here. Crosby, Russ, Kell. Now I know Hayton, Schmaltz, Keller, besides last year when Hayton wasn't healthy, they have been a very, very good line at both ends of the ice. The reason I like Pittsburgh 1 here is because Utah's penalty kill isn't good at all, and they take a lot of penalties. This line is fully correlated. It still is a Crosby line. Crosby has fallen off defensively, but he is still a very good offensive player. You're getting very good positive leverage. They are expensive at 19.5, but the way this Pittsburgh team is, they're going to play a ton of minutes. So I'm in on both top lines here, and Utah 3 is a filler.
Yeah, I will say I'm not nearly as excited to play Pittsburgh here. This team's fucking terrible, man. Like, I don't know what else to say. Like, this team is so bad. I got to catch most of that Winnipeg game last night. Now, Winnipeg has generally been pretty good this year, but Pittsburgh couldn't do anything. That's been the case for a lot of Pittsburgh games over the last month. I get, Pittsburgh 1 is perfectly correlated. 19,500, positive leverage. It's a good power play spot. Here's the thing, though, is like, how good of a power play spot is it if the Pittsburgh power play itself is absolutely god awful, right? Like, that's kind of what I'm getting at here. The Pittsburgh top power play unit is at 6 goals per 60 at 5-on-5. I think the league average for top power play units is about 8.5 goals per 60. So that Pittsburgh power play, the top power play unit with Crosby and Carlson and Malkin, the league average is 40% higher than what they're doing. Their power play just sucks again. So it's like, is this a good matchup for the Pittsburgh power play, or is it a good matchup for a bad Pittsburgh power play, or is it a good matchup for the bad Utah penalty kill? Like, that's just kind of the way that I look at it. At 19,500, like, the Winnipeg top line is $200 more expensive, right? The Carolina top line is cheaper. Every New Jersey line is cheaper. Like, you can go stack McDavid, Draisaitl, and Corey Perry. We'll talk about them a little bit later for like $800 more or something like that. Like, it's a pass for me for Pittsburgh. If people want to play them, go ahead. I'd way rather play Utah here. You mentioned how good that top line has been. That top line was great this season. I have no idea why they broke them up. Keller, Schmaltz, and Hayton, 3.4 expected goals for, 2.5 against per 60. 4 actual goals scored per 60 minutes in their time together. They're up about 120 minutes together. 2 out of the 3 guys are on the top power play unit. For whatever reason, nobody's really playing them. 5.5% ownership at 14,200. Have people watched the Pittsburgh Penguins this year? Like, I don't want to belabor the point about how bad Pittsburgh is. On the season, Pittsburgh's giving up the most goals per minute of any team in the league. Any team in the league. Pittsburgh's goal share, dead last in the league. Nobody wants to play Utah? What? At 14,200? Like, if you're worried about power play correlation, take Hayton out, put Cooley in there. I think Cooley's even a little bit cheaper. I am in on the Utah side here tonight. Keller, Schmaltz, and Hayton. If you want to go down to Bukestad, Krause, and Michelli because you want a cheap stack to put with expensive Edmonton or expensive Tampa, you're right. They have, over the prior 2 seasons, 2.9 expected goals for, 2.8 actual goals for. They were good together. But for me, this game is about Utah 1. I'm excited that they're back together. And again, if you want to turn it into a power play stack by taking out Hayton, putting in Cooley, I think that's perfectly fine.
New Jersey Devils with a 3.2 total heading into Washington. The Capitals have a 2.8 total. Washington going Strome, Protas, Miro, Shinchenko, McMichael, Wilson, Dubois. Devils going Hischier, Myers, Nason, Hughes, Bratt, Palat. I don't have a ton of interest in Washington here. Strome and Protas have pretty good numbers on the season, but most of that is with Alex Ovechkin. Ivan Miro, Shinchenko, not Alex Ovechkin, going out on a limb there. They are 12,600, but this is a pretty rough matchup. If anything, again, going McMichael, Wilson, Dubois. They've been very good all season. That's more of an MME type deal for me. I'd much rather just go play Utah 1 for $1,000 less. That's just where I'm at with Washington. Don't particularly love them in this matchup. Unfortunately, I have to respect how good New Jersey has been defensively this season. On the Devils side, I think there's 2 lines in play, but I much prefer the Hughes Bratt plot line at 17.5, 9.1% top 2 stacks, 6% projected ownership. The Hischier line, 17,100 with a 5.1% top 2 stack, 2.4% projected ownership. I'm just, Hughes and Bratt is where it's at. If you want to leave off Palat and add in like Nason or something to make it a power play stack, I think that's perfectly fine, but it would be that Devils Hughes line for me and McMichael line in MME.
Yeah, I don't mind McMichael, Wilson, Dubois here for a couple reasons. One, like you mentioned, they have been really good this season. 3.2 expected goals, 4.5 actual goals per 60. The other is that line is going to get a lot of minutes, right? I think the fact that Andrew Mangiapane only lasted 1 game on the Strome line kind of tells you that they don't have a lot of faith in anybody that they put on that line. The fact that Jakub Vrana is scratched and that that third line barely played in the last game tells you they don't really have a lot of faith in that line either. It's basically the Dowd line that they don't mind playing, and then this McMichael, Wilson, Dubois line probably going to have to play 20 minutes. So at 15,400 with how well they played all year, at 2.2% ownership, a 2.8 goal total, it's not high, but it's another one of those things. It's like, where are the goals going to come from? Like, maybe they come from like Chikrin or Carlson. Maybe Mangiapane gets in on a depth goal or something, but I got to think if Washington can get to like 4 goals here, that it's the top line that figures in. I don't mind Washington's top line here at 15,400. Also, because I think they're going to go out against the Hughes line. They're going to be used as a shutdown line a lot. And the Hughes line has been the worst defensive line of the top 2 for New Jersey. So it's not all bad. I don't mind Washington 1 here. It is the New Jersey side that I do like better. And honestly, at this point, I don't see a whole lot of daylight between the 2 lines. I think the big difference is ice time. The Meyer and Nason have been good, but Myers, there are games where he's playing like 15, 16 minutes. Nason's still at about 16 minutes. Now Hischier will get a lot. I'd rather just go with the New Jersey line that's probably going to get a lot more ice time. Like, Hughes is going to play 20 plus if it's a somewhat close game. Brad's going to be 18, 19 minutes probably. So for me, it's Hughes, Bratt, and Palat coming in with 6% ownership, 9.1% top two stack percentage. Jesper Bratt had a big game, couple of games last game. It kind of feels like chasing points, but we always say, like, the reason why Washington was so successful early in the season was largely because they were and are really good offensively, especially with Ovechkin healthy. They weren't necessarily great defensively. It was the penalty kill, and it was a good offense. Now, the penalty kill is worrisome, but as we always talk about, New Jersey's power play has been a lot better since they moved Stefan Nason up, not just by goals, but by things we look at like shots and expected goals and all that. So for me, it'd be Hughes, Bratt, and Palat. If you want to take off Palat and put on Nason or something like that, turn it into a bit more of a power play stack, I think that's fine. But it's the Hughes line that I really have interest in this game. I also think the Wilson, McMichael, Dubois line's fine from Washington.
Any more on that Meyer back issue? No, but if you've ever actually had back problems, they don't solve themselves immediately unless it was just like back spasms or something. It's usually one of those things that you're dealing with long term, hopefully not. But there's a couple of guys on the show who have been dealing with some back problems, and I'll tell you, they are not fun. Carolina Hurricanes with a 3.8 total heading into Columbus. Our Blue Jackets with a 2.7 total. No one playing our Blue Jackets here tonight. The disrespect. Absolutely sickening. You hate to see it. What are we doing? Fully correlated Monahan, Marchenko, Voronkov at 14.6, 1.7% top two stack, 0.5% projected ownership. As much as I do like them here tonight, it's a pretty brutal matchup. They're going to go out against Aho, Svechnikov, Roslovic, and that's probably your best bet, to score offensively. It's just, at 14-6 in a brutal matchup, or 14-4 go play Utah against the Schittsburg's Penguins. You know what I mean? So, I think I'd rather just go play Utah. They are a fully correlated line. I think in NBA, it's not hard to get over the field, and I would get over the field just because in a fairly small sample, this line has been great. That's really the only interest I'd have on the Columbus side. I don't really want to go out against the Stahl line or any of that kind of nonsense. Plus, these other lines I don't particularly love, even though I love Ken Johnson and you love Adam Fantilli. It's not the best spot for them tonight. If anything, it would be Columbus 1, and that would be an MME type deal. The Carolina side is where things get a little bit spicy because Carolina has the biggest total on this slate. Now, that Monahan, Marchenko, Voronkov line has been very good defensively as well, and that's partly because Werenski has been an absolute monster this season. I'm still fine with Aho, Svechnikov, Roslovic for the reason that you get Svech and Aho on the top power play unit. I'll be honest though, at 18.6, they're kind of priced in no man's land for me. The way I want to build, I don't know if I'm going to prioritize them. If Roslovic was on the top power play unit, it'd be a different story, but his minutes and not on the top power play unit concern me a little bit. If you want to get a really expensive power play stack like Aho, Svechnikov, Netchis, I think that's fine. A Netchis one-off is fine. His minutes for his price are a little bit concerning, but he is sun running right now, and you got to take advantage of that when you can. I do really like Carolina 1. I'm just not going to prioritize them in single entry the way I'm building. I think it would be some sort of Carolina power play stack. I also think there's a ton of fillers on this slate, but a one-off Jackson Blake I think is fine. You want to have a little bit of that Stahl, Martinook, Carrier line. I think that's fine as a filler. There isn't a ton of super expensive spots though, and there's other fillers that I like. So it'd be Carolina 1, Carolina power play for me. Columbus 1 in MME.
I'm a little tempted to go back to our boys here tonight. Here's the thing: is like, not only have they been great with Voronkov there, and they have 4.2 expected goals per 60, 6.8 actual goals per 60, and they are all on the top power play unit. They were great with Yegor Chinnikov there as well, right? It's basically the only guy that didn't fit in on the top line was Cole Sillinger, and I think Cole Sillinger, like, I don't know why this team loves him so much. I certainly don't see whatever it is that they see. But basically, it doesn't matter. Other than Sillinger, anybody they put up there with Marchenko and Monahan has been great. Like, legitimately great. Not just running hot by shooting percentages, but dominating the play and been great. The other thing is like, yes, like Werenski obviously has been very good this year, but since they got Dante Fabro, it allowed them to put a Severson-Provorov pairing together. Severson and Provorov so far this season, when they're on the ice together, 4 expected goals per 60 at 5-on-5, 1.8 against. They now have 2 pretty good, like at least 1 great defensive pair and at least 2 good to great defensive pairs, which is not something Columbus has had basically in years. Carolina is a really good team, but like, there's no ownership. This Columbus top line has legitimately been one of the best 5-on-5 lines in the NHL this season, period. Like, you can look anywhere else that you want, whether you want to look at Tampa Bay, whether you want to look at Toronto, whether you want to look at anywheres. That top line, legitimately one of the best lines in the league. Like, right up there with that Columbus top, or with that Carolina top line, right up there with the Edmonton top line, right up there with all of them. And nobody wants to play them again. I know it's a tough matchup, but man, like, if nobody wants to play a line that has been legitimately one of the 5 best lines in the NHL this season, that is perfectly correlated at home at 14,600, man, I am tempted to go back to them. It's tough to play them against Carolina. Carolina is a really good team. There are other lines in that price range. We talked about Utah earlier. We talked about Montreal. They're a little bit cheaper earlier. There are lines in that price range you might want to play, but like I said, this has honestly been one of the 5 best lines in the league, whether it's been Voronkov or whether it was with Chinnikov. It's one of the 5 best lines in the NHL, and no one is playing them at home. And they're perfectly correlated at 14,600. I'm gonna have to do some deep soul searching, man, because it's one of those things where I know it's not a good matchup, but it's like, if no one wants to play one of the best lines in the NHL, I have a hard time saying no in any matchup. On the Carolina side, I do like Carolina 1 here, and one of the reasons why I like Carolina 1 is the Columbus penalty kill, not that great. Columbus has been taking more penalties as well. They've been above average in that regard, like taking more penalties than the league average over the last month. The Carolina power play has generally been good this season. It's been fine since Jackson Blake got there. Obviously, we'd rather have Seth Jarvis. I'm going to be honest. I'm kind of more tempted to play Columbus than I am Carolina in this game. And I know that Carolina has that 3.8 total. To me, I would probably just go to Carolina too. I would go to Natchez, Kotkaniemi, and Robinson. They have been very good. They're a lot cheaper. They're not coming in with that much ownership, 4.1% ownership. Kotkaniemi and Natchez, like, they just have been really good this year. 3.2 expected goals for, 6.7 actual goals for. Minutes are a concern, but that's priced into it. But listen, I think either of the top 2 Carolina lines are very much in play here, but man, I am really tempted to go back to Columbus.
Oh, man. Here, you guys are talking some good smack in chat. I do like it. Are you talking to me? Even the dog betrays my smugness? You're goddamn right. Let's move on before I get it sidetracked, because my voice doesn't have much left. The Winnipeg Jets with a 2.9 total heading into Nashville. The Predators have a 3.1 total. Winnipeg played last night. I believe they won. I fell asleep before the end of that game, but it was Hellebuck in net. Not going to be Hellebuck tonight, most likely. More than likely be Eric Comrie. Winnipeg running back Connor Scheifele-Velarde, Ehlers, Perfidi, Nemestikov, Niederreiter, Lowry, Appleton. Nashville going Forsberger, Riley, Nyquist, Stamkos, Novak, and Marchessault. It could be. Who knows? The coach just loves to mix up those lines after the top line. This is interesting because the Winnipeg top line is not very good defensively. It's not Hellebuck. Their penalty kill isn't great, and Nashville has a good power play. O'Reilly, Forsberg, Nyquist, 16-1, 5.7% projected ownership, or top two stack, 6% projected ownership. I'm in on Nashville one. You only leave off Nyquist, put in Stamkos for a power play stack. I think that is where I go with Nashville, just power play stack with O'Reilly and Forsberg and call it a day. It's a decent 5-on-5 matchup. There's nothing to worry about with that Scheifele line. So, yeah, I do like Nashville one here. I also like Winnipeg one here at 19.7. They're under 1% projected ownership. They're 19.7, and that's kind of the issue. But every time there's a team playing Nashville, I kind of am interested because of what Cliffy says. They're one of the slowest teams in the league. That line is fully correlated. They don't have a great penalty kill. So I do like Winnipeg one. I don't know if I'm going to prioritize them in single entry at that price. I think there's some other spots that I like better, but Nashville power play stack, Winnipeg one. It's a pretty interesting game.
Yeah, it's tough. One thing I will say is just to watch the Nashville lines. They, big surprise. They mixed them up in that last game. I think it was the 3-0 loss to Seattle. I haven't had a morning skate today. They said that Evangelista is back in the lineup. Tomasino's out. So there could be some different line combinations. Just watch for that at warm-up. So no Hellebuck is one thing that's kind of making me interested in Nashville here tonight. Not that Eric Comrie's been bad. Comrie's actually been pretty good this season. He's just, I don't think he's as good. He's not as good of a goalie as Connor Hellebuck is. So it's a little bit of a downgrade in net. The other thing is Winnipeg's penalty kill is not that great. It's certainly not one of the best in the league. I don't even think it's even the top, half dozen or so. So I think it's a good power play matchup for Nashville in that sense. And the one thing Nashville has had this season is a pretty good top power play unit. Forsberg and O'Reilly, both on the top power play unit. Like you said, if you want to take off Nyquist and put on Stamkos, I think you can do that. But at the very least, you get 2 out of the 3 guys on the top power play unit, what I think is going to be a good power play matchup for Nashville. 6% ownership, that's perfectly fine for a home matchup. That Nashville line, they've been kind of snake bit this season. 3.7 expected goals per 60 so far this season. 1.6 actual goals. They've actually been generating a lot, and they've been generating well, and they've been dominating the play. They've just been bad for finishing. Got to think that luck kind of turns around a little bit at some point. I do have interest in Nashville one here tonight, especially with Winnipeg on that road back-to-back with Eric Comrie in net. So, I really do like Nashville one. They are one of my favorite plays in that mid-price range. The Nashville depth, take it or leave it. I would probably leave it. Stamkos is really the only guy that would interest me. The Winnipeg side is kind of interesting because there aren't really a ton of super expensive lines here tonight. There are only 6 lines priced over $18K, depending on what you want to do with Edmonton. I already said I'm not playing Tampa, so it's really 5 lines. Another one of those lines is from Pittsburgh, so that's really 4 lines. So there's really not a lot of expensive lines to go from, but I think of the expensive lines, I would probably rather go play Carolina. we'll get to the Rangers in a bit. I'd probably rather go to the Rangers. I don't mind Winnipeg one here tonight. I think in a single entry, I'll let them pass. They have been obviously they've been really good offensively, 3.3 goals per 60. They do well on the power play. Nashville's penalty kill has generally been good this year, though, so that's kind of worrisome. I don't think it's a very good power play matchup for Winnipeg. I think Winnipeg 1 is firmly in play. I think there are expensive lines I'd rather use in my single entry. I think for me, it's more of a 20 max type deal or higher. For me, I'd rather play the Nashville side, and it's Nashville 1 that has my interest.
Fair enough. Let's get to the first "This Game Sucks" of the evening. We have the St. Louis Blues with a 2.5 total heading into Long Island. That also sucks. The Islanders have a 3 total. Blues going Kyrou, Thomas, Buchnevich, Shen, Neighbors, Saad. Islanders running back Horvat, Lee, JG Pajot. Chalk Islanders night. Where have we seen you before? I'm not overly thrilled about Chalk Islanders ever. I don't really like them here. I know St. Louis sucks. And my preferred line would be Palmieri Nelson, but they're coming in at almost 15% at 12,900. There's just other lines in that price range that honestly I like a lot more. I'm going to go play Utah. I'm going to go play Columbus. I'm going to go play Montreal 1 for a tenth of the ownership. You know what I mean? I'll go play that Pettersson line for 100 more for half the ownership. If anything, on the Islanders side, I think I kind of prefer Horvat, Lee, Pajot, 15,100, 9.4% projected ownership. They have a little bit less negative leverage. They have a little bit higher top 2 stack. They are more expensive, but they are fully correlated on the power play. The Blues don't take a ton of penalties, but they have problems killing them. So I'm going to go to the correlated top unit there of Horvat, Lee, Pajot. If you want to play Palmieri, Nelson, Sipelkoff, they've been the best line all year. I just don't like that ownership. Islanders have a 3.7 total. They have a 3 total. So in on Horvat, Lee, Pajot, not so much on Palmieri, Nelson, Sipelkoff. The Blues side is a little bit more interesting. Kyrou, Thomas, Buchnevich in them. They are 17-1, 6.4% top 2 stack, 2.8% projected ownership. That are not against the Sharks. They were massive chalk, and we were off them. But at 2.8%, I will have some interest. I know they have a very small total, 2.5, but it is a pretty correlated 2.5, you can say. If they're gonna go over their team total, Thomas Buchnevich and Kyrou will be involved. I don't think I'll still prioritize them in single entry on this slate, but in MME, I will certainly have some St. Louis 1.
So ownership wise, you make the case about Horvat, Lee, and Pajot. They're coming in under 10% ownership. That Nelson line is coming in higher because they are cheaper. Here's the problem. Okay. The Columbus top line that I just talked about is cheaper than the Horvat line. Okay. Both lines are at home. They're cheaper than the Horvat line. And the Horvat line, which has been fine this year, above average, certainly not great, compared to the Columbus line, which has been legitimately great by both expected goals and actual goals this year. The Horvat line is coming in with 18 times more ownership than Columbus. It's just what? No. What?
Yeah, I mean, there's no way. I just said that there's literally no way you can prioritize the Islanders when you have Columbus 1, you have Utah 1. Just, I don't know. This game's going to burn us some way.
That's exactly how I feel. I feel like I have no interest in the Islanders here. One, Robert Thomas being back does matter because that makes the St. Louis top line better defensively. And that makes me less interested in the Horvat line. The other thing is, like, yes, maybe St. Louis's penalty kill isn't very good. Has anybody watched the Islanders power play since Matt Barzal got hurt? It makes Pittsburgh look competent. Like, what are we talking about here? No. People want to play the Islanders here tonight. Like, fill your boots. I guess I would lean to the Horvat line because there's less ownership. They are a little bit more expensive. If you think on an 11-game slate, I'm going to play chalk Islanders, it's like, no, absolutely not. If the Islanders bury me here tonight, the Islanders bury me. Such is the way of life. But no, I am not playing chalk Islanders on a slate where there are 22 teams to pick from. No. If anything, for me, it would be on the St. Louis side. Kyrou, Thomas, and Buchnevich. Obviously, they're perfectly correlated. 2.8% ownership, 6.4% top two stack. They all played over 20 minutes in that last game. Now, I know that was an overtime game, but I got to think, Kyrou gets to like at least 18, and Thomas and Buchnevich push 20, especially Thomas. Like, they're going to get a lot of minutes. Hasn't been a big sample this year, but they've been pretty good together. 3.7 expected goals per 60 and 45 minutes together. They were really good together last year. They are perfectly correlated on the power play. The Islanders' penalty kill is not very good. I would way rather play St. Louis here, even if they are a couple grand more expensive than the Horvat line. If people want to play chalk Islanders, go ahead and play chalk Islanders. I would rather play the St. Louis side.
Agreed. Let's get to the two later games. Buffalo Sabres with a 3.3 total heading into San Jose. The Sharks have a 2.8. Tage Thompson could be back tonight, and that is a biggie. And it's kind of a problem because there's no games that start at the same time and only one that starts after them. As it is, Buffalo's lines are Alex Tuck, Ryan McLeod, Jason Zucker, Peterka, Quinn, Kulich, Cousins, Benson, Lafferty. Now, obviously, if Thompson's in, he slides to that top line. You could see Peterka, Thompson, Tuck, and that would just completely just throw a wrinkle into everyone's plans unless you had some sort of expensive Edmonton or Rangers stack and you can adjust on the fly. It's kind of hard to know what to do with Buffalo because if Tage Thompson's in, I would have a lot of interest. If Tage Thompson's out, I don't have a ton of interest. And this is kind of starting in no man's land. And we don't know the lines if Tage Thompson's in. So this is just a festival. If you are heavy on Buffalo here and you're expecting Tage Thompson in, the best advice I can give you is have a couple of CSVs ready to go. I know most of the games will be locked, but have some heavy Edmonton and Rangers and react to the news, I guess. If Thompson's in, I'll obviously have some interest. It's just we don't know the lines. The Sharks side is interesting. William Eklund's a game time decision, and that's kind of important too. It's kind of hard to say what to do with the Sharks until we know about Thompson. As it is, I would have some interest in Granlund, Zetterlund, Eklund at 14.8. They're fully correlated. I'm not 100% sure who would replace Eklund on that line if he is out. I just want to jump in real quick. It looks like San Jose did change up the power play, so that line is no longer perfectly correlated. It's Granlund, Celebrini, Toffoli, and Wenberg probably on the power play. Okay. So, I mean, it doesn't change a ton, but like that would give me more interest in Celebrini and Toffoli, but like they're playing with an absolute Titanic boat anchor of Barclay Goodrow. if he is on that line, they're getting absolutely run the fuck over. If he's off that line, I would have a ton of interest. It's just like why? Like these coaches just love these players, like Goodrow with Lindgren, Trouba. Fuck. So this game, like I have a lot of interest in this game. It all kind of hinges on Thompson and Eklund and where Barclay Goodrow is playing. So like in my single lineup, like I may have to just fade it unless I have Edmonton and the Rangers and I can react to news, because I don't want to get caught with my pants down if Thompson's in and then I can't afford him. You know what I mean? So I like this game, but it's a tough sell for DFS considering the start time.
Yeah. Here's the thing is, like, I think you can build with Thompson, Peterka, Tuck in mind. And I believe that's 19,900 on DK here tonight. But you have to leave you have to do one of two things. Either have a defenseman in either that game or the Rangers Edmonton game that starts next, or leave at least $400 on the table, because Panarin, Trocheck, and Lafreniere is $400 more expensive. So if warm-ups start and Thompson's not in warm-ups, you can swap to Panarin, Trocheck, Lafreniere. But I think it's if I'm playing a bunch of lineups, I'm certainly at least having one of those lineups with Tuck, Peterka, and Tage Thompson, and then getting ready for a swap. The reason for that is that there's going to be no ownership on Tage Thompson here tonight, and it is a great matchup, both at 5-on-5 and on the power play. And if you can get Tage Thompson at sub 0.5% ownership against the San Jose Sharks, I think that's one of those risks that's kind of worth taking. So I do think it's worth going to Tuck, Tage Thompson, and Peterka. They have been good this season. Certainly 3 expected goals per 60 at 5-on-5, 5.2 actual goals per 60. There's an outside chance they're all on the power play together at a minimum. Peterka and Thompson will be likely on the top power play unit as long as Thompson is in. So just if this was like going into Los Angeles or going into Vancouver or something like that for Buffalo, I'd be like, I'm not even thinking about it. But the thing is like, it's a really good matchup for Buffalo. That's why I'm kind of giving it a little bit of consideration to whether or not to run a Buffalo one line with Tuck, Thompson, and Peterka, and then just kind of adjusting, whether it's with having a late defenseman that I swap off of to a cheaper guy so I can pay up for the Rangers, or just swapping to the Rangers in case Thompson isn't in. Just remember that you need a $400 margin. I will also mention Yuri Kulik and Jack Quinn. They have a reasonable sample at this point. They played together quite a bit last night. Whether they're with Peterka or not, they played some with him last night. We'll see at warm-ups. But Kulik and Quinn, 75 minutes together, 3.5 expected goals per 60, 2.8 against. They're generating pretty well. Whether it's Peterka, whether it's Benson, whether it's Zucker, like we'll find out at warm-up. But Kulik and Quinn have been pretty good together. And let's be honest, man, if they send out the Granlund line against, Tage Thompson and Alex Tuck, there is nothing left to hold defensively from the San Jose second and third lines. Like, I do think like a Kulik and Quinn two-man is $5,300. So if you're playing expensive Edmonton, expensive Tampa Bay, I think that's one of those two-mans I would consider here tonight. On the San Jose side, I'm actually a little bit interested in Toffoli, Celebrini. I don't want to say Goodrow, but he is on the line. Just because Celebrini and Toffoli have played reasonably well together offensively this season. They're not super expensive. You can fit them in elsewhere. Buffalo's not a super tough matchup, especially because it's probably going to be James Reimer in net here tonight, and Reimer is not Ukko-Pekka Luukkonen. The San Jose power play has been good, especially with Celebrini in the lineup. So I don't mind San Jose 2 here tonight. They're not coming in with very much ownership, 5.8% ownership, 2.9% top two stack. I think San Jose 2 is probably my favorite line in this game. You can leave off Goodrow and put on, Alex Wenberg or something. He's not super expensive. I think, make it more of a power play stack. I'm more interested in the San Jose side, but I hope we get early news that Tage Thompson is back and we can get some kind of confirmation, because I think this is going to be a night where you can get him in a really good matchup at extremely low ownership.
Yeah. New York Rangers, they 3.1 total heading into Edmonton. The Oilers have a 3.4 total. New lines for Edmonton. They're going McDavid, Hopkins, Kasperi Kapanen, Draisaitl, Podkolzin, Connor Brown. Rangers, Zibanejad, Kreider-Smith, Panarin, Trocheck, Lafreniere, Cooley, Kakko, and Brodzinski. They called up Victor Mancini, but he's in for Zach Jones. So the lovely pairing of Lindgren and Trouba still very much a thing, and they play the most minutes, so that sucks. I do have a lot of interest for that reason in Edmonton. Another reason is it is John Quick in net for the Rangers. That was the plan all along, even before Igor got hit with a puck in morning skate. So I'm fine with Edmonton 1, McDavid, Nugent Hopkins, Kapanen, but honestly, I think I'll just power play stack them, go McDavid, Nugent Hopkins, Draisaitl. I will say Evan Bouchard is a game time decision, so I would be careful about that. I would maybe leave some room. I don't know, because Ekholm is cheaper. You might have to leave some salary on the table if he's out, but McDavid, Draisaitl, Nugent Hopkins is where I would be. I think you could also put in Corey Perry if you don't want to spend all the way up there. He is on the top power play unit as well. On the Rangers side, I just go right back to Panarin, Trocheck, Lafreniere, 20,300, 11.1% top two stack, 2.3% projected ownership. They are one of the more expensive lines on the night, but they have very good positive leverage. Again, they're kind of priced in a way I'm not sure I'm going to get to them. I much prefer McDavid, like some sort of power play stack, than playing the Rangers here. Especially with that Trouba Lindgren pairing being a thing. Like, they played, I think, 24 minutes against the Flames. Igor Shesterkin saw 38 shots on goal in the first 30 minutes of that game. It can't be understated how bad that pairing is. So McDavid, Nugent Hopkins, Draisaitl, or some sort of power play stack. Rangers too for me, but I prefer Edmonton.
I mean, the specific Edmonton stack that I have in mind is McDavid, Draisaitl, Corey Perry. That three-man is 20,800. Corey Perry's on the top power play unit. These 5-on-5 lines aren't going to last. Unless Edmonton gets up 5-0 in the first period or something, Connor Brown and is not lasting the game in the top six. They are going to be moving guys around. Kasperi Kapanen is not going to be lasting the game in the top six. At the very least, you're going to see a bunch of Nugent Hopkins, McDavid, Draisaitl shifts. That's just what's going to happen. So McDavid, Draisaitl, Perry is the specific stack I had in mind because they are all in the power play. The point about the defenseman is pretty important here. Evan Bouchard might not be playing and Darnell Nurse is probably back. Taking out Bouchard and adding Nurse is not going to help this defense core. It's going to make it quite a bit worse, especially when it comes to moving the puck. Bouchard and Ekholm and maybe Brett Kulak are the only guys on this blue line who can really move the puck. And you're going to take one of them out of the lineup. It's not a good scene. So I think, like I said, specifically McDavid, Draisaitl, Perry would be the stack that I would go towards. I think I have more interest in the Ranger side here, especially with Evan Bouchard being uncertain. That top line, 11.1% top two stack, 2.3% ownership. Edmonton's not taking a lot of penalties, though. That's the one thing that's kind of worrying me. It's the sixth fewest in the league over the last month or something like that. And if the Rangers don't get a bunch of power plays, I do worry about them reaching value. I would probably rather play the Edmonton side here, generally speaking, if we knew Bouchard was in. With Bouchard uncertain, that gets me a little bit more interest in the Rangers side. For now, I will stay with Edmonton. I'm just a little concerned that if Bouchard is out, that things get a lot worse offensively. But like you said, no Shesterkin. Rangers really have struggled defensively. They've been fine, a little bit better lately, but McDavid, Draisaitl, and Perry's pretty reasonable price. So for me, I prefer the Edmonton side, but I do think the top guys on both sides make a lot of sense here.
Let's get to defensemen here. Surprised my voice made it this far, but we're almost done. At the top of the board, we have Roman Josi, Zach Werenski, Quinn Hughes, Victor Hedman, Rasmus Dahlin, Evan Bouchard, who's a game-time decision, and Noah Dobson. If I'm playing Nashville, I think I'm playing Josi with him. Same with Werenski with Columbus. I don't particularly love Quinn Hughes, although it is a good matchup for him. Rasmus Dahlin is the one that sticks out to me. Bouchard's in. Obviously, if you're playing Edmonton, I'd play him. Again, I don't particularly live in the top range. I'm more of a punt type of deal, but I think Rasmus Dahlin is my favorite.
Yeah, Dahlin and Josi at the top of the board for me. They're also at the top of the board for Stochastic by fantasy point projections tonight, so they obviously make a lot of sense. I think Quinn Hughes makes some sense here tonight. He's still shooting quite a bit, and it's one of those things like if Vancouver gets 4 or 5 goals here, he's probably going to have to figure pretty heavily into that goal total. So I don't mind Quinn Hughes here either at the top. In the mid-price range, Jacob Chychrun jumped to the top power play unit for Washington. Now, I don't like 3 forward, 2 defensemen power play units, but top power play minutes are better than no power play minutes. So I think Chychrun is fine. Charlie McAvoy certainly in a good power play matchup against Detroit. Shane Gostisbehere projects extremely well against a Columbus penalty kill that's really not that good. With Alex Pietrangelo out, I think there's a case to be made for Shea Theodore, especially in what's a pretty good power play matchup against Montreal. For Montreal, I think Mike Matheson makes a lot of sense for what is a good matchup against Vegas. Mikhail Sergachev certainly against Pittsburgh. And also shout out Jake Wallman. He's not on the power play for San Jose, but he still shoots and blocks. So I don't mind Jake Wallman. But I think there are mid-price guys like Theodore, Chychrun, McAvoy, Gostisbehere, Sergachev that I'd rather play. For cheap guys, with Pietrangelo out, Zach Whitecloud played like 22 minutes last game for Vegas, so I think he makes sense. Jalen Chatfield projecting extremely well. Ilya Lyubushkin and Esa Lindell from Dallas. Tyler Myers, he always projects well for Vancouver, even though I don't really like him. Timothy Liljegren running the power play for San Jose, I think makes a lot of sense at 3,200. Brett Kulak might have to get some more ice time here tonight if Evan Bouchard can't play, but we won't know until late. Ian Cole is actually blocking a lot of shots for Utah. He might have to block a lot of shots against Pittsburgh here tonight. And I also mentioned Brady Shea at home. Not a bad matchup for him either. So I think there are a handful of cheap defensemen, but honestly, I think that mid-price range of maybe expensive defensemen is where I'm really focusing here tonight.
Let's talk about goalies. There really isn't a goalie that I love in the top range here. I think if I would play somebody, it would be the Devils starter or Sorokin. I think Aiden Hill's fine, but I don't, really going to live in that range. I think Jake Ottinger at 7,900 is nice. The mid-range, I think both goalies in that Tampa game interest me. Ottinger at 7,900, Vasilevsky at 7,500. I think King Carl Vejmelka at 7,400 is a nice play as well. And if you're spending all the way down, Mr. Lickens, Mers Lickens at 6,900, I think is a consideration for me.
Yeah, I will say 3 of the expensive goalies I like tonight concerns me because they're all on the road, and it's Aiden Hill, Kevin Lankinen, and Jeremy Swayman. I would probably rather play Lankinen out of those three. So I would go Lankinen, then Hill, then Swayman. But it worries me that the three expensive goalies I like are on the road for cheap. Mackenzie Blackwood certainly at home for San Jose. Jordan Binnington on the road against the Islanders. Again, those Islanders, man. Those are the two cheap guys that I would look at here tonight. If you want to dance with the devil with Columbus, maybe Merzlikins can get the job done. He is a reasonable price at 6,900. So if you need a super cheap goalie, I think you can go down that far.
Who are you liking for your hat trick pick?
Not going to beat around the bush. We're going to our Utah boys, Clayton Keller.
I thought you were going to like Kirill Marchenko for sure.
Not going to go that great.
You had everyone running through a wall during that segment. I'm going to go Philip Forsberg. That line finally breaks through, and it's him who does the big damage.
I like it.
We will be back on Monday. Next week is American Thanksgiving, so there's big slates Monday, Wednesday, Friday. Very small slates on Tuesday. No slate on Thursday. So we will see you next week on Monday. Good luck, everybody. Hopefully my voice will recover. Hopefully my internet recovers. So we'll see you then. Good luck, everybody.
Good luck tonight, everyone.